What's happening, everybody? On today's show, the Island of Misfit Coaches in Tuscaloosa. That's right, the Nick Saban Rehabilitation Program adds another former coach to its staff as an analyst. We'll tell you who that is. Also, Kentucky makes their offensive coordinator hire, once again going into the NFL ranks. And it was a busy SEC basketball weekend with two top 10 teams going down. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. We've got so much to cover. We're going to go around the conference, but we're going to break it up into two different segments because there's so much to run through. Let's do it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
In recent weeks, Nick Saban has been adding some guys to his repertoire as analyst. Todd Grantham is a name known across the SEC, of course, from his time at Georgia, Mississippi State, and, of course, his past 4 seasons at Florida before he was let go mid-season. But Todd Grantham is now reportedly joining the Island of Misfit Coaches, as I call it, over in Alabama. As Matt Zenitz of On3 Sports reports, Grantham is accepting a job at Alabama as an analyst. Of course, Nick Saban has helped a lot of fired coaches get back on their feet in recent years. When you talk about guys like Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Butch Jones, Mike Loxley, Bill O'Brien, the most recent one. But this offseason alone, Saban has been adding some interesting minds as analyst. We know just a couple weeks ago he added former SEC coach Derek Dooley. He hired former LSU quarterback Zach Mettenberger. And now Todd Grantham will look to rehabilitate his coaching career under Nick Saban. We'll see what kind of impact Saban can have on Grantham and what kind of impact Grantham can have on Saban and his staff, and see if it has any influence on the defense. Look, at times, Todd Grantham was a very good defensive coordinator. At times, not so great. But I got a feeling, like most guys, when you go to Alabama, you look a lot better and probably get back as a DC very soon after spending, a year, maybe 2 in Alabama. He'll be right back out there. Some SEC East news, as we heard over the weekend, that for the second straight offseason, Kentucky coach Mark Stoops is going to the NFL ranks for his next offensive coordinator. Tom Pelissero from NFL Network put out there that Kentucky is hiring San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks coach Rich Scangarello, who will replace Liam Coen as OC. Of course, Coen left to go be the OC for the Los Angeles Rams. That's where Stoops hired him from just a year ago. Scangarello is known as a quarterback guru and is reportedly familiar with the same scheme that Coen was running. Scangarello's already been an OC at both the college and NFL ranks, having coached at the likes of Idaho, UC Davis, Northern Arizona. So he's got college experience, and now he jumps back from the NFL to the college ranks in Lexington. Before he was with the 49ers, Scangarello was a senior offensive assistant with the Eagles in 2020, OC of the Denver Broncos in 2019. So a lot of experience. We'll see what he can bring to Will Levis at the quarterback spot in Kentucky. But, of course, Liam Coen obviously had such a great impact on that Kentucky offense last year, taking them from ranking in the hundreds in many offensive categories to, top 25, top 20 in some. So we'll see what Rich Scangarello effect he has on Kentucky as their new OC. We know that Georgia is still on the hunt for their next offensive line coach after Matt Luke decided to step away from football last week. Football Scoop reported that Auburn's Will Friend former Ohio State offensive line coach Greg Studrawa, and Baylor's Eric Mateos were all in contention for the position. But according to David Smoke of Sikkim 365 Radio in Waco, Mateos is no longer involved as a candidate. He did not detail why he's out of the mix, but we will see if Georgia targets now Will Friend or Greg Studrawa to replace Matt Luke as their O-line coach. Over at Missouri, Eli Drinkwitz and his squad were back on the practice field. They are doing things a little different. They're going to have their spring game way earlier than everybody else in the SEC, but Drinkwitz met with the media on Saturday, and reporters shared some of the highlights. One of those had to do with starting quarterback spot. When are we going to know? We're going to hear a name announced this spring. Are they going to make a decision on who the starting quarterback is? Well, Tyler Macon and Brady Cook are the two returning quarterbacks with experience. And Eli Drinkwitz says it's important for them to know the job will not be decided over these 15 spring practices. He said, look, the job will not be earned in the spring. He also did mention that Mizzou signed high school standout Sam Horn in December. He's not yet enrolled, but will get an opportunity to compete for the starting job when he joins the team in the summer, Drinkwitz said. The next Tigers starting quarterback, however, may not be on the roster yet. There's been plenty of rumors swirling that Arizona State transfer Jaden Daniels may end up at Missouri. Of course, Drinkwitz can't comment on a player being recruited, but sounding like they are open to guys not on the roster as much as the guys that are on the roster. So we will see. Brady Cook started the bowl game, looked pretty good, but we will see if Eli Drinkwitz gets in the mix for Jaden Daniels or maybe one of the other quarterbacks out there in the portal. But just know, there will be no decision on a Mizzou starting quarterback in the spring. All right, that is part one of Around the Conference. We'll get you some more tidbits here in just a second. As always, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And a reminder, football season is over, but basketball, of course, is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. And if you're looking for all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where you can find the next fired coach, where he's going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline, they remain the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Of course, not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, anything you're looking for. They have got it for you. All the coverage and information. Head over to their website today. You can do so on your desktop or mobile device. You can sign up and learn about all the trends and action that they've got going for you. BetOnline, it is where the game starts, and you want to make sure you're in before all the tournament madness starts coming in just a couple weeks. BetOnline.net. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and we just did part one of Around the Conference. There's so much to discuss when it comes to news and stuff going on, so I figured we'd break it up and do a second parter before we get into basketball news, so let's jump back into it. The SEC on Friday announced the dates officially for SEC Media Days heading back to Atlanta this summer. The event is set for July 18th through the 21st at the College Football Hall of Fame in the Omni Hotel at the CNN Center. The 2018 SEC Media Days were held there at the same venue. We're supposed to go back the year of COVID, and of course that didn't happen, but the SEC Network will once again bring the 4-day event nationally televised. But here's how it shakes up. On Monday, July 18th, it's going to be Brian Kelly, Lane Kiffin, and Eli Drinkwitz. On that Tuesday, it'll be Nick Saban, Mike Leach, Shane Beamer, and Clark Lee. That Wednesday, Sam Pittman, Billy Napier, Kirby Smart, and Mark Stoops. And then Thursday, July 21st, the last day, will be Josh Heupel, Jimbo Fisher, and Brian Harsin. I wonder if they're going to sneak Brian Harsin in at the last minute. You know, like, he'll be the last coach when almost all the media have left. Okay. All right, Mr. Harsin, going to make a few quick comments, and then he's going to slide out the back door and be on his way out of here. And a couple of weeks ago, it felt like Brian Harsin wasn't even going to be back at Auburn. So good to see him on the list of SEC Media Days coaches coming up in July. Some other news, speaking of SEC Media Days, it was last SEC Media Days that we found out that the SEC would be expanding. The report came out from the Houston Chronicle that Oklahoma and Texas would be joining the SEC. Well, during a visit to Texas A&M on Thursday, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey was asked about how all that played out. And he said, look, I didn't communicate effectively. I will own that in terms of how the story broke. Now, it looks like it's going to be difficult for Oklahoma and Texas to leave the Big 12 before the 2025 season. Sankey's previously acknowledged pre-existing relationships, contracts, and all that, and being respectful of those. But if they want to move any earlier, Sankey said, look, we're going to have an orderly transition. That's why we're focused on 2025, but I'm a pretty adaptable person. I don't know that it's possible, honestly, to get it done earlier because there are contractual relationships involving their current conference. But we have a forward-looking thought process. Part of my responsibility is to be prepared when you have those outreach, and we'll see. So, look, if we're keeping track at home right now, we're literally talking about we're going into the 2022 season. Then we're going to have the 2023 season. Then we're going to have the 2024 season. Then in 2025, Texas and Oklahoma would join the SEC. So we're still talking about a ways off. If I had to guess, it's going to happen sooner, but we shall see. News over at Florida as Billy Napier continues to beef up his support staff. On Sunday, it was reported from Matt Zenitz and On 3 Sports, the Gators are adding another experienced assistant to their off-field staff. Russ Callaway is expected to head to Gainesville. He spent 2020 at LSU before heading to the NFL to serve on the New York Giants staff last year. Callaway was an offensive coordinator at Samford for 5 years before going to LSU. Prior to that, he was a member of Alabama's coaching staff working under Kirby Smart, who was the DC at the time. Already talked a little on Missouri. Just another note on Mizzou. They have shaken up their staff a little bit. Another new assistant coach that they're adding is Al Pogue. He will join the Tigers to coach cornerbacks after coming over from Troy, where he spent last season. Drinkwitz said, Al Pogue brings a ton of experience to our staff. I know him well, and I know what he brings to the table. I'm confident that the group of coaches and staff we've assembled will be impactful for our program. Now, along with adding Pogue to the staff, Missouri announced that Blake Baker is going to be their defensive coordinator. That position, of course, opened up when Steve Wilkes left to go back to the NFL. DJ Smith also will see his role increased with the addition of co-DC duties, continuing to serve as linebackers coach and recruiting coordinator in addition to that. Over at Georgia, they took a little bit of a hit this week. A top 100 recruit, Quavius Sori, who committed to Georgia for more than a year. He announced that his recruitment is now reopened. He shared appreciation to the Georgia staff and for the opportunity. He said, I realize this only comes once in a lifetime. After much thought and consideration, I'd like to experience the full process by reopening my recruitment. He's rated the number 97 recruit in this class, the number 14 wide receiver in the class as well. He was recruited to Georgia by Scott Cochran and Cortez Hankton, who recently left for LSU. Over at South Carolina, Spencer Rattler will be making his way around Columbia this fall, doing so in style as he scored a new Chevy Silverado as part of an NIL deal with Jim Hudson Chevrolet. Rattler was a preseason Heisman favorite, of course, going into last year. A lot of hype surrounding him, going and joining Shane Beamer's crew. We'll see if he can live up to that hype, but congrats on his new NIL deal with a truck dealer. Of course, Miles Brennan got the same last year at LSU. SEC quarterbacks and trucks, they like them. Last little tidbit around the conference, former Missouri defensive lineman Antar Thompson has committed to continue his college career at Valdosta State. He posted on social media that he said, a lot of people might not know, but I am blessed to have received a scholarship offer from Valdosta, and I've been committed. He was largely a backup defensive lineman in his time at Mizzou. He recorded 5 tackles over 2 seasons. He did graduate in 2020, so he's going to use that extra year of eligibility to go play at Valdosta State. As we transition to basketball talk coming up in the next segment, I do want to bring this up. Kyle Tucker, who covers Kentucky basketball for The Athletic, he pointed out how home court advantage has really mattered this season in the SEC. He said, I'm starting to think venues like Bud Walton Arena, Auburn Arena, Rupp Arena, Thompson Bowling Arena are all really hard places to win when the home team is good. Kentucky 17-0, Auburn 15-0, Tennessee 15-0, and Arkansas 16-1 at home this year. He said, just to put a finer point on that, the SEC's top 4 teams are 64-1 at home this year. None of them has beaten any of the other 3 on the road. Got 1 week left to go in the season. There is just one more game between teams in the top 4 of the SEC standings. That'll be next Saturday when Arkansas travels to Knoxville to take on Tennessee. So betting money says bet on the Vols in that one. All right. That is it for Around the Conference. When we return, we're going to run through the Saturday that was around the SEC basketball-wise. A lot of action to recap, particularly those top 4 teams all going up against one another. We'll discuss that next. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And look, when you stick to listen to your podcast, sometimes you got to stick to your New Year's resolutions, and that is eating healthier and eating right, and that is choosing our friends over at Built Bar. Look, we've been talking about the Puffs for a while. If you have not tried them yet, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. The Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They are fluffy, marshmallowy. They are not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. The Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors from cinnamony churro to coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. All so good, and I guarantee you're going to find one of those to be your favorites. Built Bars, low calorie, high in protein. Replace your candy bars with a Built Bar today. Head on over to their website, built.com. You can use our promo code LOCKED15. That'll get you 15% off your first order. Use our promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off over at built.com. All right, continuing on here on Locked On SEC, and it was a busy, busy Saturday for SEC hoops as we had some top teams go down, including 2 top 10 teams. So let's jump right into it. First up, it was Tennessee taking down number 3 ranked Auburn, 67-62 in Knoxville. The Vols trailed by 11 in the second half, but went on a 17-2 run to ignite the Tennessee offense. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield hitting some big shots. Vescovi scored 14 points, while Ziegler had 11 of his 13 in the second half. As the Vols improved to 15-0 at home this season, Auburn, led by Jabari Smith, who had 27 points. K.D. Johnson, he had 18. The Tide lost their 3rd straight road game. Tennessee dominated on the boards 54-31. Bruce Pearl called playing Knoxville the equivalent of a Final Four game. And he would know about that atmosphere. He's coached there before. But next up for these two, Auburn, they will be at Mississippi State on Wednesday. Tennessee, they will make their final road trip of the regular season to face Georgia. The other big matchup of the weekend was in Fayetteville as number 18 Arkansas knocked off number 6 Kentucky 75-73. J.D. Note had 30 points and 8 assists, while Jalen Williams added 16 points and 12 rebounds. Arkansas helped create a tie with Kentucky in the SEC standings. Tennessee for second place in the SEC with 2 games to play. Razorbacks, they won for their 13th time in their last 14 games. They have been white hot. Kentucky, they trailed by 6 at the half, made it a nice second half run to make it close. Oscar Tshiebwe, he had 30 points, 18 rebounds for the Wildcats, who lost for only the second time in their last 10 games. Severe Wheeler, Keon Brooks, they each scored 14 points. Arkansas improved to 3-0 against Kentucky at Bud Walton Arena, where both teams are ranked. Before Saturday, the last time the Razorbacks had beat Kentucky at Bud Walton Arena was 8 years ago. Now, Arkansas, they could finish second in the SEC for the second consecutive season. The Razorbacks own the SEC's best overall record and best mark in regular season league games going back to the start of 2020-2021, where they have gone 24-8 in the conference. So they have been really, really good. The Wildcats, Kentucky, they slipped to 3-5 this season against AP top 25 teams. That includes a 1-5 away from home mark. biggest win of Kentucky's season, of course, that 80-62 road win at Kansas. But outside of that, Kentucky's not been very good against ranked teams on the road. Up next, Kentucky, they will wrap up the regular season with a home game against Ole Miss on Tuesday, followed by a road game at Florida next Saturday. Arkansas, in their final two SEC games to close it out, they will host LSU Wednesday before finishing on the road against number 17 Tennessee. Other games from the weekend, number 24 Alabama knocked off South Carolina 90-71 to improve to 9-7 in the SEC. Javon Quinterly led the Tide with 20 points and 5 assists. LSU, they got back in the win column, stomping all over Mizzou 75-55. Tari Eason led the Tigers with 18 points and 6 rebounds. Florida got a road win at Georgia 84-72. Flanders Fleming had 27 points. Georgia now a woeful 6-23 overall, 1-15 in the SEC. Tom Crane, go ahead and start packing up the things in your office. You may want to be on standby there. The somewhat surging Mississippi State Bulldogs, they won 74-69 at home against Vanderbilt. Scottie Pippen Jr., man, he is doing everything he can for Vanderbilt this year, just not getting much help from his cohorts. Scottie Pippen Jr. had 32 points in their loss to Mississippi State for Vandy, but State has now won 3 of their last 4 to get to 8-8 in the conference. That's why I say they're somewhat surging. And the Texas A&M Aggies, they're somewhat surging. They've won 3 of their last 4. They won in Oxford on Saturday, 76-66. Tyrese Radford had 19 points and 7 boards for A&M. I think Mississippi State and A&M both not really in the tournament picture right now, but if they keep playing well like they have, one of these teams can get hot, make a run through the SEC tournament. You never know. Remember, A&M started the season very hot, running through their non-conference pretty well, and then things kind of collapsed once they got into SEC play. And so as we have it right now, Auburn still the leader of the SEC at 13-3. Arkansas and Kentucky, both and Tennessee, all just one game back, all at 12-4. So we will see this week. Very important for those top 4. See how this thing finishes here in the SEC. And there you have it. That is your weekend recap. SEC Hoop Style. The tournament's going to be here before you know it. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Now you can go make your second listen. Check out the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bringing you the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. Thank you guys again so much for listening to Locked On SEC. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from around the conference and much, much more. Remember to subscribe and catch us on YouTube. Locked On SEC. Talk to you guys tomorrow.